Thanks for stopping by, and welcome back to this look at the history of the Glasgow Subway. In the previous video, which I'll link below in case you missed it, we looked at how this historic system was planned and built in the 1880s and 1890s. We now come to the day of the subway's opening, which was eventful to say the least. Here's what happened. After taking just over 5.5 years to construct, the Glasgow District Subway, as it was originally known, opened its doors to passengers on Monday the 14th of December 1896. It was an early start on what was no doubt a dark, chilly morning, with the first train departing Govan Cross on the outer circle at 5 AM, and the first inner circle service leaving 3 minutes later from Copeland Road, which is known today as Ibrox. Trains then ran at 6-minute intervals throughout the day, and it took an average of 42 minutes to travel the entire route. In those days, the Glasgow Subway was unusual in that its trains were hauled through the tunnels by 2 ropes, each of which was some 7 miles long, and powered by a group of steam boilers located in a power station on Scotland Street, close to Shields Road Station. One journalist, sent to cover proceedings on that historic first day, seemed distinctly unimpressed with this system of traction and complained in his report that the pulleys used to feed the continuously moving ropes were so noisy that it was practically impossible to hold a normal conversation at platform level. Initially, the subway had a flat fare, meaning you could travel any distance you wished for a penny. This quickly proved far too generous though, as many of those eager to experience Glasgow's new mode of transport opted to stay on board for several complete loops. Be honest, you'd have probably done the same. I know I would. This meant both the platforms and cars remained packed throughout the entire day, and long queues formed outside stations as those above ground patiently awaited their turn. Unfortunately, this overcrowding was compounded by a series of increasingly serious mishaps that were to occur as the day progressed. The first of these unfolded at 3:30 PM when the cable pulling trains on the outer circle slipped free between Cowcaddens and Buchanan Street. A train happened to be approaching at the time, but luckily the driver managed to control the situation by applying the brake. However, with the cable disconnected, the train wasn't going anywhere in a hurry, meaning passengers had to get out and walk through the tunnel. Although services ground to a halt for 30 minutes whilst repairs were carried out, those queuing outside stations were still allowed to pour in, thus pushing the platform capacities to their absolute limits. A few hours later, at 9 that evening, this overcrowding resulted in a very nasty accident when a guard named John Thompson found himself pushed back by the sheer number of passengers as he slid the car doors open at Bridge Street Station. The rush of people caused John to slip, and he ended up crushing his foot between the train and platform. A doctor was called to the station from the Royal Infirmary, who concluded that John had suffered a major fracture to his big toe. Not the sort of thing you want to experience on your first day. Sadly, even worse was to come. At 10:55 PM, shortly before the subway was due to close down for the night, a serious collision occurred beneath the River Clyde when a train ploughed into the back of another, just south of St Enoch Station. Despite the late hour, the cars were still jam-packed, and 18 people suffered injuries, some serious. One woman broke her arm, whilst a 14-year-old lad named William Morrison was knocked unconscious after his head smashed through a window. Needless to say, he was also very badly cut. It transpired that William had been riding around the subway on his 1-penny fare for almost 9 hours, having boarded at 2 in the afternoon. In modern parlance, this catalogue of misfortune would no doubt be dubbed a PR disaster. After just 1 day in service, the Glasgow Subway had to shut down, and over the next few weeks, the company worked hard to tweak the system and improve safety. This involved the installation of a new signalling system, which was operated by telephone. Each platform was kitted out with a small phone box, and whenever a train departed, a brass knob on this unit had to be pressed. This would trigger an alarm at the previous station, thus informing the driver behind that it was now safe to proceed. According to an account in a daily record at the time, these alarms were ear-splitting, producing a, quote, screeching, unearthly sound that echoed throughout the entire station. The same article also mentioned how the subway staff had come to liken the distinct noise to that of a buzzard's call, so I imagine it sounded something like this. Warning bells were also set up in the ticket offices, which were used to alert vendors whenever platforms were becoming too busy, thus advising them to hold back people for a few minutes. The ticket prices themselves were given an overhaul too. 1 penny would now only allow you to travel through 4 stations, and if you wanted to ride further, it was going to set you back 2pence. During this period of alteration, trains ran continuously on a test basis, and they were loaded with sacks of ballast to simulate the weight of passengers. The Glasgow Subway finally reopened on Thursday the 21st of January 1897, and with Glaswegians being the great bunch of folk they are, it came as no surprise that they were as keen as ever to embrace and support their new means of traversing the city. Between 1897 and 1977, the Glasgow Subway looked very different to the one we know today, and in the next episode we'll be looking at the old system's stations, rolling stock and overall character, before moving on to the subway's second incarnation, which opened in 1980. So please be sure to stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Glasgow Subway's chaotic opening day. Thankfully, things have calmed down considerably since then, and I can happily vouch that the modern system is now ultra safe. Indeed, if you love trains and haven't yet ridden on the Glasgow Subway, you really should give it a go. As always, a huge thank you to all of you who support this channel. Your likes, shares and kind comments really do provide the best encouragement I could wish for. If you haven't yet subscribed, I'd really appreciate it if you could please consider doing so, as it would be great to have you along, and it'd also ensure that you don't miss out on any future content. In the meantime, if you're a fan of the Glasgow Subway, or indeed know someone who is, then you may be interested in these hand-drawn mugs I've designed. They're available from my Etsy store, Robslondon Designs, which I'll leave a link to in the description. Anyway, for now, thanks again friends, stay well and please be sure to stay tuned for our next venture into the history of the Glasgow Subway.